Stories After Dusk. (2012) Early September, Seligman, Arizona. I was traveling with my brother for medical school interviews from my home in SD to Arizona. We had interviews on the same day at the same school, so we turned this into our first trip together, flying to Vegas to see a friend and then renting a car to go sightseeing before our interview in Phoenix. On our way through Arizona, we headed east towards Flagstaff, as we were hoping to get there and then down to Sedona before dark. Spoiler, we did not. The North American monsoon was underway, and a torrential rain greeted us on a highway through the highlands of Arizona. I had never driven in mountainous terrain before, and I quickly became aware of the risk in hydroplaning into the median, as the water has no fertile farmland to sink into, and a lack of sufficient vegetation to stop runoff. I opted to pull off at the next town, fill up with gas, and wait for the storm to pass. Next exit, Seligman. Pulling into the town, it seemed to be set up as some sort of tourist trap. It seemed to make a claim to fame for Route 66. The town itself was streamed with old and quite dirty party banners, the kind with triangles that looked like they had a party 8 months ago, but forgot to take down the decoration until next year's birthday. I pulled into the local's gas station and began filling up with gas. As I was filling up with gas, about 5 people, 70 years or older, came out of the gas station, sat underneath the canopy of the station, and just stared in my direction. Shortly afterwards, an old pickup pulled up. The man in the vehicle was skinny, with those telltale skull outlines of countless years of methamphetamine. He stopped, rolled down the cranked window, and despite me being underneath the safety of the pump canopy, he started cackling at me. "You're going to melt! You're going to melt! You're going to melt!" I can't remember how many times this happened, but I felt like I was about to be featured in a 30-second news spot of hopeful medical student murdered in Seligman mystery case, body never found. He took off. He never filled up all the gas. The observers on the porch remained silent. We decided the rain had died down enough that we could pass safely. After heading further east on the I-40, a car that passed us earlier had crashed into the stone median. Let's get started. I've been an urban exploration enthusiast for about 10 years now. I've been in some remote places. I have literally hundreds of pictures from the gutted innards of the overgrown but indestructible Buckner building in the Whittier, Alaska, and inside the subterranean viscera of others, the tunnel systems beneath SUU in Utah, underfoot thousands of people there for the annual Shakespeare Festival. But creepy? Scary? I'm not sure which would take the cake. I've spent quite a bit of time in Twin Arrows and Two Guns. Now, Twin Arrows is just an abandoned trading outpost, but Two Guns, now within the borders of Winslow, but still ostensibly haunted, probably takes the cake. It is, or was, as I'm not sure of its present state, known primarily as a ghost town, replete with abandoned swimming pools, derelict outposts, and water towers, and occasionally a half-deconstructed tower or two. But what disturbed me about Two Guns wasn't the more recent buildings that lay in partial ruin. It was the crevices that, often without warning, seemed to open up beneath your feet with yawning, hungry mouths. Like sideways tunnels, they twisted and turned with jagged teeth. If you shine a flashlight down them just right, you could almost see twinkling near the bottom. At first, I assumed they were abandoned mining projects. But if that were the case, why would they be so unmanicured? These were definitely natural formations, but more importantly, they were new. Yelling down into them was an act of strangeness. The echoes that came back up were distorted, flattened, hollow. My exploration partner, now deceased unfortunately, not by natural causes, per se, but certainly not supernatural either. This isn't a creepypasta, folks, and I decided to move along. Later down the road, there was a wider canyon, this one with wood planks spanning it. We thought better than to attempt to cross it, but did climb a tower that allowed us a better view of the area. It was surreal. The brittle bones of several establishments built in various time periods were visible from this height, from the newer construction of water towers to the historic brick and adobe shells of the settlement before that. We left after perhaps 6 hours. I will never forget that trip. As I mentioned before, my exploration partner died 7 years ago. Otherwise, I'd have him chime in on this post. I do have pictures. There's enough demand though. If you ever decide to do Route 66, I suggest following history and starting in Chicago and heading west. Beginning the drive in Santa Monica loses any California beach charm it might have, once you get about 2 blocks away from the ocean. From that point on, for about halfway through the state, expect 1-hour drives to take 3 hours and little sign that you're driving on the historic Route 66. Anyway, I started in Santa Monica. The hotel I stayed in, the Georgian, looks good from outside, and it's an Ocean Ave, so it's no slouch in the location department. But goddamn, are the people who work there some pure Californian assholes. Long story short, save your money, stay somewhere where they won't treat you like you're taking up a room that could be filled by a significant person. Around noon, I finally made it past the outer rim of LA territory and into San Bernardino Valley. Now, I was on the Route 66 on my imaginings. 2 semi-maintained lanes with sparse traffic, sharp, winding turns, and the feeling that if you died out here, it would take at least 2 days for your body to be found. The San Bernardino Valley is not the least impressive valley I've seen. I was surrounded by smallish mountains and loads of desert bush. Every now and then, you have to get onto the interstate, but for the most part, it's a straight shot of Americana with 2 lanes leading to some, surely glorious, point on the horizon between the mountains, almost vomit-inducing. As I drove out of Barstow, the route meandered a bit, and I got turned around more than once. When I found my bearings, I saw that the route was taking me into what looked like a border crossing area with lone cop, hand at hip. I made to turn around, but a check of the map, an authority beyond cop, told me to go forward. My 2 quick swerves must have made the cop suspicious. As I pulled up, he gave me the classic cop stare and once over of the vehicle, looking for any giant bags of heroin that people always leave out in the open when they're in that business. "What's your affiliation?" he asked. I gave him a MN smile and said, "Oh, I'm just trying to follow Route 66. This apparently was not a reasonable statement. The cop informed me that I was trying to enter a Marine base and would have to turn around, but he didn't quite want to let me go. "What brings you out here?" he asked again. I told him that the map directed me that way, and that I was, after all, on Route 66 at the very moment. He seemed genuinely perplexed by my explanation when I told him that I was on a road trip. "What kind of road trip?" he asked. "Road," I said. "Hot for that," Koff said. Yeah, well, Yeah, I said. Cop then asked for my ID and took the appropriately inappropriate amount of time to run me through the system. When he came back, there was a long line of cars behind me. I have to say, none of them looked like affiliated either. Cop handed me back my ID. As I was about to drive away, he raised a hand. "One more thing," he said. "Whatever you do, don't stop in Daggett." Laughing a bit, I said, "Oh yeah? Why, what's in Daggett?" Cop made a face that indicated that either his warning should have been enough for, or the fact that one should not stop in Daggett was self-evident, and the truth of the proposition was complete by the invocation of the name Daggett. I pulled a UE and headed back to the interstate to bypass the Marine base. Look, I stopped in Daggett, okay? At the next turnoff, I pulled back onto the route and saw a sign reading, "Welcome to Daggett," in reasonably friendly type. You actually had to take a few extra turns to get to Daggett, so Cop's warning seemed pretty superfluous. I mean, really, it seemed like he actually wanted me to stop in Daggett, right? So, I took the few turns and pulled onto a road. It might have been called Daggett Road, I can't quite remember. There was a lone man walking on the street. He had baggy blue jeans and bright red suspenders over a dirty white shirt, untucked. I'd been hoping to pick up a hitchhiker somewhere along the route, but you know, suspenders probably make good ligature. In any case, the guy didn't appear to need a ride. He seemed more like he was just a Daggett dude and didn't need to go anywhere else. As someone from the northern MN who has lived a while in the southern AZ now, I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of the real small town. There's usually a few trailers, maybe a couple of questionable dwellers where you see them and think, yeah, a person could theoretically seek shelter there, but really nothing had prepared me for Daggett. Each block, or semblance of block, was like a collection of card houses put up by a 5-year-old who hated failure. So when one house went down, he just moved on and slapped together 2 more cards. You could tell people lived here. There was that unmistakable lived-in feel. But other than that, the dude with red suspenders, I didn't see anyone. I felt like I had to get to the bottom of the cop's invocation, though. Like, what made Daggett above all other towns worthy of an official cop warning? Don't stop in Daggett. I was just pulling around a corner that contained something like a general store when I saw 2 small, lanky men slink out of one of the shanties and into a rusted Chrysler. I didn't see if they were wearing red suspenders. I have to tell you, I instinctively locked my doors. I fucking hate doing that. I almost never do. It's such a fucking superior gesture. Nevertheless, I did it now. I idled along a bit and decided, quite suddenly, that maybe I didn't want to know the reason behind "Don't Stop in Daggett." There was just something Daggett-y about the whole situation. Abandoning all of my normal, let's see the real world and have adventurous instincts, turned my Honda around and noped right out of Daggett.